let's talk about some games. So right now is a very interesting time to be a fan of 13, since we have the remake coming out pretty soon, and the original game has aged pretty gracefully. Now this video today was originally suggested by Kane. We're going to be taking a look at the weapons in 13, and we are going to be assigning them to different tiers. Of course, I haven't been playing any multiplayer. I have based my picks for the weapon tiers in this video on how these weapons handle in hard mode on the PC version. So that's kind of the criteria that's been going into this. I ended up picking hard mode instead of normal because I wanted to basically put more pressure on me in combat situations so I can get a better feel for how effective each weapon is in a pinch. I didn't play it on the absolute hardest mode because, you know, I still want to have a little bit of fun. So, all of those caveats out of the way, here we go.
The 9mm pistol gets the job done. It works at short and medium range, and ammo is so plentiful for this thing that in a pinch, you can eliminate enemies at long range as long as you don't mind missing a few times. They're all-rounders, and on certain missions you even get to use silencers on them, so other enemies won't hear you. The downside, though, is that they're the weakest firearms in the game, taking 2-hole shots to the head to kill baddies that aren't wearing helmets. They're not worthless or anything, but there are pretty much always better weapons available for combat and stealth situations pretty much all the time. These get a C, although dual-wielding these raises them up to a B. 13 seriously has some of the worst frag grenades in the genre. They float lazily through the air towards their target, and 9 times out of 10, by the time they've landed, the guys you were trying to kill have already scrambled out of range. You'd think that they'd at least be useful for flushing enemies out from cover, but the problem is that you can't quick throw these things. You have to switch to them, throw them, then switch back to a gun. If you're trying to kill yourself, they're a great way to leave yourself open for a second while an enemy runs out from behind a wall and shoots you a few times before you can pull out a real weapon. Fuck these grenades, they get an F. In all honesty, the pump shotgun is pretty disappointing. It's serviceable, but it doesn't have the kind of hell yes oomph that you'd expect. It's cool and all that you can melee enemies with the alt-fire, but the gun is only useful at close range anyway, so you're just as likely to never actually use its melee. It's basically on the same level as the one 9mm gun, because it takes about the same amount of time to clear a group of enemies with it, and that's assuming all your shots land. It gets a C. Sometimes you can get lucky and kill 2 baddies with 1 shot, but that's rare, and for the most part this shotgun gets outclassed by almost every other weapon in the game. Or even just random shit lying around. The random shit lying around is honestly pretty useful. Some of the loose objects in the game can be thrown, and most can just be whacked over an enemy's body at point-blank range. While thrown objects can be a little unreliable, the bludgeoning ones are great, knocking out your enemies in a single hit. They do have unskippable braking animations, however, so if you miss, or if an enemy isn't alone, you may leave yourself vulnerable to attack. It's not really advisable to begin a group assault with this stuff, but for the most part, objects in the environment are a great way to pick out isolated enemies and conserve your ammo. Plus, it's just cool. Random shit lying around gets a B. There really is nothing like a good stealth weapon. The single-bolt crossbow is great at long range, and it's maybe even a little unrealistic because your shots always land exactly dead center on target. It takes a little bit of time for your shots to hit their mark, but they always land exactly where you point them. The only real drawback is that sometimes your enemies will move out of the way, and the missed shot can alert them to your presence. Since loading the next shot is slow, you might end up eating a few rounds or failing because of a tripped alarm in that instance. But that's not likely to happen terribly often because the AI in this game, God bless it, is pretty fucking predictable. The single-bolt crossbow is excellent for quiet long-range kills, and it's with you for a lot of this game. It's no good in a heated firefight, but that's kind of obvious. It's an A all the way. So, how about that 3-bolter? The one where you don't have to reload after every single shot, and you can actually let a couple fly before you have to leave yourself vulnerable? You know. Oh god. Oh god, it's beautiful. I wish you were in this game more. It's just not fair. S tier. How about short-range stealth, though? Any decent options for that, other than just cracking a motherfucker's neck? Well, yes. You do get throwing knives. They're pretty good, too, at short range, as long as you don't blow it. A thrown knife to the head is a quiet instant kill, but if you screw it up, you can quickly stab the dude to death with the melee alt-fire, so screwing up isn't too punishing. Plus, it's just really cool landing a thrown knife kill. Makes me feel like Hawk. It's just no good for anything beyond short range, though. You know, because they're knives. You know how they say you can judge a first-person shooter by its shotgun? You know how 13 blew it with the pump? Well, 13 gets another chance, because there's a double-barrel shotgun. And unlike how most double-barrel shotguns work in most games, this one fires one barrel at a time, and it's all the better for it, giving you 2 chances to land a powerful shot, or, if you're just on fire, wiping out 2 enemies in rapid succession. You still gotta be careful after you've spent your shots, but seasoned FPS players already know that. It's not terrible at medium range either. It's definitely a step up from the pump-action shotgun, earning a B. But unfortunately, it's barely in this game, so it doesn't do much to redeem the pump. The pump is still the one you'll have for most of the game, so it never gets to be much of a workhorse weapon. It's a shame. Okay, so I think there needs to be an addendum to the shotgun rule, where a shooter gets another chance if there's a good magnum in it. Now, I know it's just called the 44 Special in this game, but I'm calling it a Magnum because the whole reason this gun is popular in media is Dirty Harry, and Dirty Harry calls it
the 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world.
So how is this game's Magnum? Fucking sexy. A tier. 13 redeemed. One shot to the head will kill, and at long ranges where it becomes harder to aim, you still only need to land a couple of body shots. And at close ranges where an enemy might try to sidestep you, the alt-fire lets you fan the revolver and get the lead out quick. You could main this weapon for most of the game if you really wanted. This gun is great. It would be the most well-rounded gun in the game if it weren't for the assault rifle. It's not the most accurate thing, but it really doesn't need to be. It has a decent clip capacity, and it only takes a few hits to kill most enemies, easily chewing up even the heavily armored enemies. And it has a built-in grenade launcher, and unlike the shitty frag grenades, these grenade rounds detonate immediately on impact, and they're so powerful that you can often just solve an entire room's worth of problems at the press of one button. Knocks a nice big chunk out of bosses, too. S! The assault rifle isn't the only, assault rifle in the game, though. There's also the Kalash. It's not as good as the assault rifle overall, but its alternate burst fire mode does make it a little better at long range. Plus, you're pretty much always going to find ammo for it. It's not glamorous, but it's perfectly functional, and it's always there. It gets an A for adequacy. And then there's the Harpoon Launcher. I want to like this gun a lot more than I do because harpoon guns are undeniably cool weapons to have in an FPS. The problem is that as harpoon guns go, this one isn't particularly great. Its range is not much better than a thrown knife, and it doesn't do as much damage as you'd hope for with a torso shot. It's a one-hit kill underwater, but that's only useful in one area of the game. It seems kind of wrong that you can't retrieve fired harpoons, too. That would have made this gun much more fun to use. As it is, it languishes in C tier on account of wasted potential. So, the minigun is not a minigun, it's a mini-gun. Okay, look, it's stupidly named, but it's just an Uzi. It has a nice high rate of fire, but it's pretty inaccurate, really good for cleaning small groups of enemies up close, just not good for really anything past that. Gets a B for being real good at the one thing it does. Akimbo miniguns gets an A, though, because of just how quickly you can wreck a boss. Speaking of wrecking things, do you like explosions? I like explosions. And the bazooka doles them out really well, and it isn't complicated. The boom goes where you tell it to. It's good for wrecking lots of dudes at once. The radius of explosions is surprisingly wide, though, so you want to be careful. It would be S tier if less of the game took place indoors, but it's not much use in the game's many confined spaces. Speaking of things that aren't useful in confined spaces, don't you find it unbelievable that this game's sniper rifle isn't not? Was that too many negatives? I don't think it can't not have been. Point is, despite the fact that it doesn't have a reticle when it isn't scoped, it's still pretty viable, taking out enemies with one headshot or 2 body shots in most cases. Not that you'd want to use it indoors, but you're not necessarily screwed if you do. But it is best in larger areas, because it is, a sniper rifle. There's not much to say about that, except that, as far as sniper rifles go, it has a high rate of fire, but it's also loud. For the most part though, the crossbow or the Magnum is a better fit for most situations. I only found myself using the sniper rifle in situations that essentially forced me to. It's a B. Now, what would a gun show be without these guns? And the answer would be a few seconds shorter. The fists are as useless as you'd expect. These only come in handy if you run out of ammo precisely when you need to knock out an enemy seconds before they trigger an alarm and you happen to be close enough and you also didn't pick up some random shit lying around. Outside of that, there's no reason to throw hands. F! And like Jesus Christ himself, I have saved the best for last. The machine gun is absolutely godly unless you're trying to speedrun, but for any other situation, the heavy damage, high rate of fire, and surprising accuracy compensate so heavily for the way that it slows your movement speed that you can basically forget that it even does that. I mean, why would you use a weapon that allows you to dodge fire from 3 enemies when you can just immediately kill those 3 enemies with a crushing barrage of hot lead? This weapon shows up rarely in the game, but not as rarely as the 3-bolt crossbow. If they let you have this more often, it would completely unbalance the single-player game. They don't have a chance against this. First-person shooting is my drug of choice, and this game's heavy machine gun is uncut fucking heroin. Content warning, drug references, rest in peace monetization. S tier! Raw!
Thank you for joining me on that. That was an interesting journey through the armaments of 13, and I hope you enjoyed hanging out while I talk about, like, guns and violence and Jesus, I guess. Once again, I want to wish Kane a happy birthday. This was my first tier list video. I may do more of these in the future. I don't really know. Because I never know what I'm going to do next. Ah! Fuck! Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed making it, except for the... I shouldn't have done that. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video, and of course on the next stream. I put out a new schedule every week. If you enjoyed that video and you want to help me create new content, there are ways that you can support this channel. I have a Patreon that you can pledge to, patreon.com/WookieFragger. There is also a Ko-fi account where you can make one-time donations, and that is ko-fi.com/WookieFragger. If you want to have something to show for it, something that you can hold on to, go to WookieFragger.com. We sell Wookie Frag's Alien Scum mugs. And I really can't thank enough the people who have supported this channel this year. Because this is honestly the year where I have most needed the support and have gotten so much. It's kind of mind-boggling. The response that I've gotten. It's been what I've needed when I've needed it, and it still kind of blows my mind. And before I go, I definitely want to thank Andy Felicati and Kevin Doherty for supporting this channel on Patreon. Thank you both very, very much. And I will see you all in the future. Be it the next stream, the next video, or just gazing into a crystal ball and watching you while you sleep at night, thinking that you are safe and alone.
Is that comforting or terrifying? I don't know. What's my breath smell like?